A dog playing King Arthur? Does this mean Wishbone is getting a revival? Arthur the King stars Mark Wahlberg as adventure racer Michael Lenord, who is followed around by an injured stray dog during a 700-kilometer world race in Ecuador, the Dominican Republic in the movie for some reason. Michael eventually comes around to allowing the dog to be part of his racing team, and he proves to be a big help on their grueling journey. As an animal lover, I love me a good movie about a boy and his dog, and Arthur the King is that, a good movie about a boy and his dog. You could say it's sort of the antidote for anyone who hated The Call of the Wild for all the same reasons I did, because it's the story of a man who befriends a dog on a journey through the wilderness, except it's an actual on-screen animal and not some CGI roadkill, and it touches on the issue of animal abuse more appropriately. I really have to give credit for the fact that it doesn't resort to making the dog's behavior into anything anthropomorphic, or the human and dog's friendship into anything too cheesy. The filmmakers are serious about depicting a genuine bond between man and animal without dumbing it down to be cartoony or child-friendly. And with that, I should give a heads up to any parents watching. Even though there were young kids at the pre-screening I attended, the movie is rated PG-13 due to some occasional language and a few crude remarks. Some certain pain that the dog suffers may also be very upsetting to children, so you may want to consider all this if you're thinking about taking them. So the human and animal bond is very authentic because, for one, Mark Wahlberg has a real live animal to work off of, and because he's one of those actors who's got the Midas touch. I just love him in everything, even when he's bad.
What? No.
Whatever the movie is, Wahlberg is most entertaining when he showcases his aggressive demeanor in his gentle voice. And there is one scene in Arthur the King where that's on full display, when he goes off on some sponsoring executives about how one day his face is going to be on their wall. And later on, he puts together his racing team consisting of Nathalie Emmanuel, Simu Liu, and Bear Grylls as himself. They have good banter amongst each other and are pleasurable to have along for the trip, even if their characterizations are mostly two-dimensional. As the adventure goes on, the team takes shortcuts riddled with obstacles, making for a handful of suspenseful scenes, particularly one perilous situation on a zip line, and another sequence where they climb up a rocky cliff with their bicycles slung over their shoulders. And through the entire adventure, the handheld camera work gives the movie a live video feed kind of edge, making it feel more personal and real. So the adventure aspect with the human characters is all good. The only sizable problem I had with at least the first 40 minutes or so is that for that time, the titular canine is actually kind of an afterthought. Before he crosses paths with Michael and his team, Arthur only gets a few short scenes of surviving in the village on his own, like one where he lies down malnourished and leaves before a resident can bring him some water, and another where he runs away from some other territorial dogs and escapes onto a flatbed truck. Aside from maybe 3 little scenes like these, the humans get all the attention before they meet Arthur, and I think the dogs should have gotten more equal focus before then. Take something like 8 Below with Paul Walker. You ever seen that movie? That's the ultimate dog lovers movie. So in that movie, when the humans are forced to leave their dogs behind in Antarctica, we had the human storyline and the dog storyline going on at once, and there was a perfect balance of both. For the first act of Arthur the King, it feels more like the dog scenes were meant to just let the audience know that they didn't walk into the wrong theater. This really is a movie about a dog. Just eventually it is. But again, when they do cross paths, that's when the movie is at its best because of how well it handles the human-animal bond. And it does amount to a harrowing final 15 minutes that, yes, did have me welling up in the eyes, though that's not very hard to do with me when dogs are involved. Now, while the movie accurately has Michael Lenord retiring from adventure racing in 2015, the race where he adopted the dog is moved to 2018, so it's written to be a comeback story. That's not needed. There's enough going on already that it doesn't need to succumb to any sports movie cliches. Also, as I mentioned before, to the disappointment of a lot of citizens of Ecuador, the country where this all happened, the race in the movie instead takes place in the Dominican Republic. Maybe it was cheaper to shoot there, but if that's the case, why not just film there and pass it off as Ecuador? It's not an uncommon thing. Little House on the Prairie still took place in Minnesota. They didn't have to move it to California just because they filmed in California. It's changes like these made to the real-life events that may not be as detrimental to the story as a few such changes in Ordinary Angels were, but they still seem quite unnecessary. A movie that I imagine will be brought up alongside Arthur the King a lot is The Family Plan, an action comedy that wasn't awful but didn't stand out in any way. That movie came to Apple TV Plus not 3 months ago, and just like Arthur the King, it had Simon Selin Jones as director and Mark Wahlberg as producer and lead star. So they must have been working together on these two movies pretty much back to back, and it's easy to tell which one was the safe corporate product designed for streaming, and which is the one the two of them were passionate about showing the world on the big screen. Because Arthur the King is a worthwhile viewing that puts a more mature spin on the boy and his dog story. The first act, I think, definitely could have used a more balanced amount of screen time between the humans and the dog, but it's still an enjoyable trip that boasts some suspenseful sequences and good characters. As a dog lover, I left the theater satisfied, and maybe I wouldn't mind watching it again somewhere down the road. Scoring on the Factor Facts, I'll give Arthur the King a 68%. It's nice to get a review out for a movie before anyone else does for a change. That's a wrap. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this review helpful. Like and share, subscribe for more. This is Pop Culture. I'm Alex Pop.